To eat too much honey, nor is it glory to search out one's own glory. Why don't you think about a taste of honey here this morning? Today we have refined sugar, we have brown sugar, we have powdered sugar, we have maple syrup, we have countless artificial sweeteners. I won't even try to list all the different names and brands and types of sweeteners that we have on the market today. If you want something to taste sweet, we have the sweetener for you. There's a plethora of products out there that's going to do it for you. Still, among all the sweet things in life, the world's favorite sweetener is probably honey. With its rich, sweet taste, it's considered the royalty of the sweets. In the time our text was written in, it wasn't just the best sweetener, it was probably the only sweetener that they had. I mean, there was relatively few things that were sweet. You could find fruit that had sweetness in it. I'm told that the manna had a taste like honey. But when it came down to being able to sweeten your food, basically it was honey that did the job. That's what they used back then. One of the first man-made desserts most likely was honey cakes, which was a simple flat bread that was made by stirring in amounts of honey to make it sweet. To find honey in Bible times was like finding a treasure. It was something which was celebrated. It was something that made people glad. Samson, the great judge in the Old Testament, this mighty warrior for the Lord, found a lion carcass in the middle of the wilderness, this rotting lion carcass, and for some reason the bees had decided to use the hollow in that carcass to make a hive, a honeycomb. And when Samson found the honeycomb, he didn't turn up his nose at it like we probably would if we found honey in the middle of a rotting carcass. He celebrated it. He ate the honey out of the lion carcass. And then when he went in among the enemies of the Lord's people and they wanted to trick him, they wanted to use him, they wanted to profit off him, he ended up making a riddle out of the experience to confound them, having eaten the honey out of the lion. The land that God promised to Israel was a land of great abundance. And in order to convey that to the people, it was called a land flowing with milk and honey. It spoke of richness. It spoke of a wonderful abundance for the people of God. The sweet taste of honey offers to us a boost to our energy. Saul had his people on a military march. He wanted to accomplish this military conquest. And so he determined to make them diligent to be about the task that he had set before them. He told them not one of them was to taste a morsel of food until their goal had been achieved. They're on this long military march and not one of them is allowed to eat a morsel of food. And Saul says to them, if anyone dares to touch one bite of food, he will be accursed. So the people are marching on their way to this military site. They have to pass through the woods. And there's a honeycomb that's evidently fallen out of a large hive. It's laying on the ground and honey spilling out everywhere from it. And as they're marching by, Jonathan, Saul's son, sees it. Now, Jonathan hadn't been there when his father had passed this decree that no one was to taste anything. So Jonathan, as he sees the honey on the ground there, he sticks his staff in it, he turns it over, he's got himself a little popsicle there, He's licking the honey off the end of his staff there. And we're told immediately his eyes brightened. All people, as they saw him eating the honey, they said, oh no, Jonathan. Your father strictly forbid us to eat anything. And said if any man ate anything, he was going to be accursed. Now, Jonathan wasn't as upset about it as evidently everybody else was. He said, then my father said something wrong. It's not right what he told you. He said, did you see when I ate the honey how my eyes brightened? He said, on this long march, we need nourishment. We need refreshment. We can't do it going on an empty stomach. So what my father said here was wrong. We need the energy that could be provided here. That story reminds me of my high school days on the wrestling team. Whenever we went to an away match, we always took with us a little honey bear. You know those little plastic dispenser bears filled with honey? We always took one with us to our wrestling matches. And just before the match started, we'd pass that honey bear around to everybody that was going to be wrestling that day. They'd tip their head back and they'd squeeze out a little bit in their mouth. And because we knew that honey metabolizes very fast, and it would give us that boost of energy that might make the difference in those 6-minute matches that we were going to be wrestling. Just a little boost of energy could make the difference between victory and defeat. We knew that honey could make the difference in that situation. The writer of Proverbs, when he talks about honey here, is comparing it to receiving man's praises, to receiving glory, approval from other people here. He's comparing it to honey because it is sweet for us to receive praise. It's sweet to have our works or our words or our appearance praised by other people. A child who grows up without praise becomes insecure. They feel unloved. Sometimes they even feel worthless if there's no praise. And one of the reasons we as God's people have been given the church is because we're supposed to encourage one another. Praises are supposed to flow through the sanctuary of God's people. And as we give those words of encouragement, as we glorify one another, as our text today would say it, as we show appreciation and build one another up, we become stronger for it. It's not that we need to be flattered so much as we need to have that positive reinforcement in our lives to be able to be effective in the Lord's work. Now, like the shots of honey from the honey bear that our wrestling team used to partake of, praise gives us vigor in the work that the Lord has given us to do. I still remember Mrs. Fuller. I've shared with you about her from time to time in the past, but I had a dear Sunday school teacher for just a couple of years at the Lorraine Christian Church, a woman by the name of Mrs. Fuller. She was an older lady. She was long past the years that most consider retirement years, but she had a love for the junior boys, and every week she was faithful to teach the junior boys class. And you know, the truth is, I don't remember one of her Sunday school lessons. I don't remember anything she ever shared in class except for this. She praised me when I prayed. Anytime I would pray out loud for the class, as the shy boy that was sitting in her class, she'd heap praise on me. Tell me what a good job I did. Told me what a gift I had for praying. And she made me feel it. For a while there in Lorraine Christian Church, we didn't have an evening worship service. Instead, we had a prayer meeting. We gathered together. We'd sit in the prayers. The preacher would take prayer requests for a little while, and then we'd have a time of concentrated prayer when people just stood up when they felt like it and started praying. You know, one after another would pray for whatever was on their heart or for one of the prayer requests. And there, as a shy, junior-aged boy, I was, week after week, participating in public prayer because of the encouragement and the praise given me by that one woman. And I'm not sure, but that years later, after I'd graduated high school, and in that summer between high school and college, I changed my major and went to a different college and became a minister. I'm not sure it wasn't foundational in my decision to become a minister, that woman's praises and the direction that she set me on. Because it made a difference in my life. It made me start thinking about what I could do for the Lord and not about limitations. Because of the praises that she heaped on me. Praise is a wonderful thing. The church would be more powerful by a long ways if the honey of praise was more often present in the church fellowship. But that's not what our passage is really talking about this morning, is it? It's not about a taste of honey. It's about too much honey. And that leads us to the fact that there can be too much of a good thing. Too much honey can make you sick. In another passage from Proverbs, Proverbs chapter 25, verse 16, we find these words. Have you found honey? Eat only what you need, that you not have it in excess and vomit it. The Bible can be very plain sometimes. You eat too much honey, you're going to vomit. You eat too much honey, it's going to make you sick. Just as a taste of honey is sweet, just as it is wonderful to receive the praise and encouragement of others, and as bitter as criticism is, praise is that much sweeter. But to make a meal of honey is sickening. And so to receive praise can be sweet, but too much praise will not be good for us. Nor will we find the enjoyment in being praised all the time that we might think. This Wednesday, a lot of kids are going to be going trick-or-treating through the neighborhoods. They'll come home with bags full of candy, and if their parents aren't watching them carefully, they're going to eat and eat and eat until they get sick on their candy. It's the same for many people who receive a taste of approval from others and go to look for as much as they can get. They want more and more and more accolades. They want more glory heaped on their lives. They're looking for more approval in the eyes of others. And many people have become bitter on the success of celebrity. The fame they sought's now suffocating them. Too much of a good thing. Even the attempt sometimes in our lives to please others can be harmful to us. It's dangerous. Aesop tells that story about a man and his son who decide to take their donkey to the marketplace. And as they're walking towards the market, leading their donkey along, a man stops them and says, "Hey, this isn't right. You there, you're walking with your little boy here, down to the market. You got this perfectly good donkey right there. Why are you making the boy walk the whole distance? Why aren't you letting him ride the donkey?" And so the man dutifully picks up his son and puts him on the back of the donkey and continues to lead the donkey down the road towards the market. Pretty soon they're passing another man, and he's shouting up at the boy, "Son, what kind of disrespect is this, that you, a young man, should be sitting up there on the donkey and your old tired dad should be made to walk?" And so the dad dutifully climbs up behind his son on the donkey, and they continue riding the donkey down towards the market. Then they come across another man, and he says to them, "Two of you up on the back of that donkey, tiring that poor beast of burden? You ought to be carrying that donkey, not riding him." And so they dutifully get down and find a branch and tie the donkey's legs to it so that they can carry that stick between the two of them and carry the donkey to market. And as they're carrying the donkey to market, they come across a bridge, and then one of them stumbles, and the weight gets shifted, and before they know it, they can't stop it. The donkey's tumbling over with its legs tied into the water below and drowns. Now, Aesop tells that story to bring home this truth. It's not good to try to please everybody. It's not good to be bound all the time by other people's opinions. To run around trying to please other people is just going to make your life miserable, and eventually you're going to lose because you're trying to please other people, because you're trying to earn people's praise, because you want their approval for your lives. Those who seek the approval of people, in fact, lose sight of seeking God's approval. They lose sight of God's will for their lives. They're so busy running around trying to please everybody else that they forget about what God's purpose is for their life as they're trying to live up to people's expectations. Galatians chapter 1 verse 10 says this, "For am I now seeking the favor of men or of God? Or am I striving to please men? If I were still trying to please men, I would not be a bondservant of Christ." If I were trying to please men, I would not be a bondservant of Christ. You're not going to be very successful about living your life for the Lord if your energy is spent in pleasing men. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 4 says this, "On the contrary, we speak as those approved by God to be entrusted with the gospel. We are not trying to please people, but God who tests our hearts." We're not trying to please people, but God. Matthew chapter 6, verse 24 has our Lord's words recorded as this, "No one can serve two masters. You will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other." You can't be devoted to living for people's approval and still be living for God's approval in your life. Our passage puts it this way. It says, "Nor is it glory to search out one's glory." What does that mean? Nor is it glory to search out one's glory. It means there's no glory in seeking to be glorified. When you're running around constantly trying to get approval, when you're trying to get other people to glorify you, when you're trying to make them appreciate what a wonderful person you are, there's no glory in that. Running around after the approval of other people makes us less. It doesn't make us more. It shames us. It does not build us up. There is an embarrassing moment in my youth that I don't speak about very often. And I bet you find that interesting because I've shared a lot of embarrassing moments from my youth. But I can remember the last year I had in grade school. They were going to graduate our little grade school class. They were going to have a big ceremony at the PTA meeting. Well, they did everything at the PTA meetings. They were going to have this big ceremony at the PTA meeting for our graduation, and they were going to bestow upon us awards. Now remember this, there's a class of 12 I have graduating out of grade school at that time. 12 people. They'd gone with me all the way through grade school. From first grade on up, we had about the same 12 people the whole time. 10 boys, 2 girls in my class. And so we were a close class. Of the awards that were going to be given, there was one that was really attractive to me. One that I really wanted to win. It was an award that was going to be bestowed by voting in the class. The class was going to choose the person who was the most popular student. And as a shy young boy who didn't say much around other people, who only had the courage sometimes to crack a joke because I knew it made other people laugh, I really wanted to be the most popular in my class. I really wanted my family to hear me be named the most popular person in my class. Now, I didn't get an allowance back then. The only source of money I had really was my dad's offer to pay us 10 cents for every row of corn we hoed in the field. And those field rows went on forever. But I applied myself. I hoed a lot of rows of corn. And I took my money down to the general store. Yes, we had a general store in Lorraine. But down to the general store and bought up as much candy and gum as I could. And I went around to my classmates, encouraging them to vote for me to be the most popular kid and offering them candy and gum. And of course, they all took the candy and gum and they all made the promise to me that they were going to vote for me. Sitting in that assembly at the PTA meeting, I was just waiting for my name to be mentioned as the most popular in my class. And when they announced the award, they announced the winner was Gerald Jenkins, not me. And I was embarrassed. And I think I would have been every bit as embarrassed if I had won the award. Back then I was young. I hadn't come to realize that there was no glory in seeking to be glorified. I just wanted to be popular. I didn't care how I got there. There's no glory in seeking glory. If you live to please other people, your life is going to be hollow. It's going to be empty. It's not satisfying. You know something? You might be a lot more successful in winning the approval of others than I was in getting the votes of my classmates. You might be the most popular. You might find a way to win everybody's approval in your life. But even with that success, it's not much glory to live on. And it means nothing in the long run. Throughout their political careers, Hitler and Mussolini were adored. The masses came out to almost worship them with the adoration. And now they're among the most reviled people in human history. Marilyn Monroe, an actress that was so very popular, she had the whole world's attention at the time that her life became so meaningless that she committed suicide. There's no glory in seeking glory. It doesn't mean anything to win the approval of other people. And I want to tell you this morning that the only approval worth striving for is God's approval. Only seeking God's approval is going to give us any real glory. Matthew chapter 6 verse 33, but seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. James chapter 4 verse 10, humble yourselves in the presence of the Lord, and He will exalt you. Matthew chapter 6 verse 1, and then jumping to verses 16 through 18. Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. If you do, you have no reward from your Father in heaven. Whenever you fast, do not put on a gloomy face as the hypocrites do, for they neglect their appearance so that they will be noticed by men when they're fasting. Truly I say to you, they have their reward in full. But you, when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, so that your fasting will not be noticed by men, but your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. Those passages are all talking about the same thing. Forgetting about the accolades of men and living to receive glory from God. God created us for the glory that He intends to put upon us. God intends that we should be lifted up. He intends for us to be glorified in His presence, in His everlasting kingdom. And there's no glory like He offers that's to be found anywhere in this present world. Man's praise is fickle and fleeting. It cannot last. It cannot satisfy. Only God's praise can fill us up. And that brings us to our invitation time this morning, where I'm going to ask if you are ready to seek God's approval in your life, that which is truly sweet and that will never sicken us, the honey that will not disappoint. This morning, if you'd like to receive His glory, if you would like to receive His praise, if you would like to be found worthy in His eyes, we give you an opportunity to make a first-time decision or to renew your commitment to live for Him. Won't you come forward as we stand and sing our hymn of invitation, Surrender.